Okay, we'll come back from our recess. We now have some presentations, and I have a couple of proclamations. And our first proclamation is a declaration of a Fair Housing Month proclamation, and I will read this, and then Virgil's going to come up and accept it. It says, whereas on April 11th, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968. The 1968 Act clarified the prohibition of discrimination regarding the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, religion, national origin, sex, and is later amended disability and family status. And whereas this month is deemed Fair Housing Month and should be a celebration of laws and efforts of citizens to remove impediments to equal housing opportunities and to emphasize and ensure the rights of all citizens in an effort to provide housing choice. And whereas the City of Coeur d'Alene supports the efforts of many organizations, housing, and service providers working toward affirmatively furthering fair housing. Now, therefore, I, Steve Widmeyer, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim April 2016 as Fair Housing Month. Virgil, if you want to come up.
I would like to thank the Mayor and the City Council for this proclamation today. I would like to introduce, though, Michelle Porter, who works for me, because I'm not the only one at Disability Action Center back there. And then this is Angela McDonald, who also works for me. We're a little bitty office. But Angela would just like to let everybody know about the date of what's coming up here for the Fair Housing training. And then I actually have a personal fair housing issue already that I'm dealing with here, that Fair Housing is working with me, that I'd like to present to the people and let them know what has happened to me and what I'm trying to do to save the people at my park or village, whatever you want to call it, so that this doesn't happen to them. And I will explain this shortly, right after she talks about our fair housing training coming up. Angela McDonald.
Thank you. It looks like on April 21st, Idaho Fair Housing Forum, U.S. Attorney's Office, and HUD and Intermountain Fair Housing Council, they're going to be hosting a fair housing workshop, and that again is on April 21st of this year. Basically what they're going to be doing is they're going to be featuring a number of experts on the subject of fair housing, and the workshop is going to focus on learning about fair housing law from a provider's perspective, fair housing hot topics such as language access, fair housing responsibilities, including service animals, and reasonable accommodations. The event is offered at the Coeur d'Alene Public Library Community Room. And so that's located obviously here at 702 East Front Avenue in Coeur d'Alene. And the registration, there is a link on this page below. However, we didn't get it onto a PowerPoint, but you can contact Disability Action Center at 208-664-9896, and we'll be more than happy to email that link to anybody that would like it.
Thank you.
And I will concede to Virgil.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me this opportunity and time to talk. I would like to, and I'll make this brief because I know there's many more important things coming up, but I just wanted to let everybody know I am one of the protected classes, under the protected classes, with the fair housing. On the first of the month, I live in a place called Hidden Hills Residential Community in Coeur d'Alene, and was just recently bought out by a couple named Doug and Karen Rupiper from Spokane, Washington, who at the beginning of the year were working with me on my sale of the house so I could buy another home. In that they were, and I have a text messages from Doug Rupiper about coming and looking at my home so that they could put a bid on it because they wanted to buy it also. So on March 29th, I have the text from Doug Rupiper stating that he wants to come and look at my house and that he's going to give me a bid on my home. So on April 1st, I get a call from his wife, Karen Rupiper, who tells me that I will be getting on the 2nd a 90-day notice of non-renewal and notice to vacate premises, which means that now, after I've bought my home, put my money out there, bought new appliances, which they knew I was doing, they then came and gave me this notice on the 2nd, which says I either have to move my trailer, which is $5,000 or $6,000 at least, or I have to destroy it and pay to have it destroyed and have it hauled away. I just put a bunch of money into it because I had it sold to a gentleman who is also covered under the fair housing, as he has a disability, and he was signing his lease or his application at that time to send it to them because he had talked to them. They assured him that everything was going to be okay. When he found out that if he bought my place, that he would have to move it at $3,000, he would have to move it or destroy it. He said, well, I can't do that. So, yeah, they're allowing me to sell my home, but I can't sell it. And now there's a good chance that if I have to pay to have my home destroyed, that money will be taken out and I will not get into my new home, which means I could be homeless. I can't go back to this house, and I may not be able to move into my new house because I have to pay to have my home destroyed, where the gentleman wanted to buy it and even offered me $1,000 more than what I wanted for it. And he would more than happy to tell you that. I have his name and everything recorded on how to get a hold of this gentleman and what it did to him. Because he was trying to move his pregnant daughter and son-in-law and him out of a home that has black mold and try to get into my home, and now that's been totally torn apart. He still lives in that home with the black mold, and he's had to move his family out into Spokane because this didn't come through.
So, Virgil, you are working then with the Fair Housing folks to see if they can help you out.
Right. Fair Housing has come up. Allison Brace and Carrie House came up and visited with me on this issue because they're dealing with these issues all across the state. This isn't just me. We are all vulnerable people who have no rights. She told me, get a lawyer. It doesn't matter. You can't do anything. We're in our right. And I asked her, why did you do this? She says, I don't have to have a reason. And they don't.
So, Randy, the Fair Housing is going to help you through this situation.
Well, they're going to do the best, although the thing is if you don't give a reason, how do you know whether or not there's discrimination or not? That's their issue. They don't have to give a reason. It could be because they just don't like disabled old people. I don't know. But if you don't give a reason for it, then I have to come up with maybe my own, and maybe that should be my assumption. But they're looking into this, and there will be an investigation. But
just a second, Virgil. Randy, just a quick question. This 90-day notice, that's state law?
Yes, that's state law for manufactured home parks.
So if there is something that needs to be changed to protect some things, the avenue would be the state. Is that
right?
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
And my thing is that's what I'm asking. My second thing is to ask the public to not allow this to continue, to get a hold of your legislators, get a hold of your attorney general, get a hold of the media. Because media, I had the Spokesman Review are doing an article that will come out tomorrow morning, which I have said I will pay for to get it to the people in the park so that they know what's happening. Because I came to the Coeur d'Alene Press and they turned me down. And which is one thing that's very upsetting is that I thought I saw this on the sanitation thing. Okay, and this is what, and we're not, they don't want to put our article out there, but they will put in Return of the Osprey. Front page news. But I and these people that live in this place aren't newsworthy. So, again, I'm very upset. And my thing is that we need to pressure the news media about this. And I am going to protect the people at this park because I will not allow them to do this to the people. They need to put in the contract that there is provisions in there to protect people so that if you sell your house, there's a lady right now that's selling her home, putting money into it so that she can sell it. If she gets the same thing I do, she's going to stick all that money into that place like I did, and then she'll have to have it destroyed.
Thank you, Virgil. Please keep me updated, and I can keep the rest of the council updated.
And I just have one gentleman here who will just give 2 seconds or so. He lives across the street from me, and he's coming up just to let people know what effect this has had on him.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rick Van Horn. Yeah, I live right across the street from Virgil, and, you know, the problem I had was they changed like rent's due on the 1st, and there's no grace period. And so I have to post-date a check, you know, on the 1st and give it and put it in their mailbox. Well, I'm not really sure that I trust these people, the way that they handled Virgil's deal on him, you know, making him basically destroy his property. My place is very nice up there. They came up and commented yesterday. I'm just not feeling like I have a secure place up there. I threw out every bit of money I had into this place. I'm disabled. I'm afraid that they might just take it out from underneath me, and then I'd be out on the streets.
Well, you know, Virgil is a very good advocate, so please be in contact with Virgil, and he will keep us updated. But I appreciate
Yes.
the feedback on that. Thank you.
I just think it should be addressed.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Virgil.
Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you again, everybody.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So we will move on to an Arbor Day proclamation. I have another one to read here. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Do they still have 1 million trees in Nebraska now?
Probably not.
Whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas Coeur d'Alene has been recognized as Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Therefore, I, Steve Widmeyer, Mayor of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of April 25th to April 30th, 2016 as celebration of Arbor Day Week. And we have Katie Kosenki here to do this.
Thank you. Thank you. I do. Thank you. Mayor, City Council, thank you very much for having me here tonight. I just want to quickly announce some of the activities that we'll be doing for our Arbor Day, our Arbor Week. Some things that we will be doing. We actually are holding some Arbor Day children's programs here at the library tomorrow. The program Trees Are Great will be here at 10 o'clock, and then the following week we'll be distributing seedlings throughout the library as well. We also have an Arbor Day seedling program. The Kootenai Arbor Day Committee for 30 years now have been giving seedlings to 4th grade students. Through that program, they have now distributed over 67,000 trees. And winning artwork this year is by Marissa Koski of Coeur d'Alene Charter School, and that is a sticker. We're starting to do a sticker instead of a button to accompany each seedling with the 4th graders. The art is designed by junior and senior high school students, and then we have a select classes of 4th graders that do the judging, so they'll get to select which buttons that all of the 4th graders will receive. And I'll leave some ballots here for you. It's just amazing the artwork that they come up with for these buttons. It's really a fun thing for us to do. Our Arbor Day celebration will be held right out here at McEwen Park on Saturday, April 30th. We'll have a tree planting starting at 10 a.m. We're adding a few nice shade trees and places here on the east side of the park. We will have a ceremony and free lunch. The lunch is sponsored by Sun Valley Tree Service. The Native Plant Society will also be hosting a couple of hikes on Tubbs Hill at 10 a.m. and another one a little bit later in the afternoon at 12:30 p.m. We'll be receiving our 32nd consecutive Tree City USA Award. We'll have our art contest awards on display. We'll have free tree seedlings to distribute, tree care information, and we always do some fun door prizes. So with the weather being so nice, we've got our fingers crossed for a warm Arbor Day, which is very rare. It's generally raining, but we have the big shelter out here, so I invite you to come and have some fun with us on Arbor Day and plant some trees and have some lunch. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Katie.
Just have some quick questions and comments for Katie. Thank you, Katie. I was there last year at your Arbor Day and snowman building contest. Just cold and raining all the time.
Right.
We get a lot of flack up here whenever a tree goes down because we just cut down 10 by the museum.
Right.
Do you have an idea for the public how many trees we plant in a year?
Right. You know, it varies year by year with how many projects we have going on. In fact, 2 weeks from now, I have a contractor starting on over 100 street trees that will be planted throughout the city. I'd say this last year, I believe it's just under 500 trees, but some years, depending on the projects, it's up to 800 or more, and we do lots of seedlings in our natural open space areas as well. But the number of trees removed is fairly minimal in comparison to the number of trees that we're replanting.
Thank you, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else, anything else for Katie? Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Move on to the consent calendar. Who's got the duty?
Woody didn't say.
I've used all my
Woody,
words up.
are you there?
I think Dan English should do it.
Okay. Dan, you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
I will. Well, I've got to get on the right page. I will move to accept the consent calendar. Do you need the detail?
Yes.
Resolution number 16021, Addendum 3, extension of agreement to professional services contract for the Panhandle Area Council for our grant administration services, and approval of easement agreement with Leona Hassan, 726 East Tubbs Hill, and addendum to school resource officer contract for school year 2016 with North Idaho College for SRO services during the summer, and the school resource officer contract for school year 2016-17 with North Idaho College, and declaration of surplus drug task force vehicle, and declaration of surplus used equipment.
Second.
Very well done.
Motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Roll call, please, Amy.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers, Gookin,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Ettinger.
Yes.
Motion carried. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone that is here that would wish to give a public comment on any official city government business would have 3 minutes to do so right now. Anyone in the audience that wishes to do that? Don't see anyone. Announcements. Anyone? Dan.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We just approved a contract for sanitation collection that we heard the proponent say that it would save a lot of money. What I would like to do is place an item on next meeting's agenda for us to discuss lowering the collection fees for the residents. And that doesn't need a second. It would just be a discussion item. And we should have discussed it tonight, but Troy isn't here, and I know Troy is the one who said we don't want to mess with that, but I think council wants to discuss why we can't mess with it and all those other details. So if we could do that on the May 3rd meeting,
So a rate discussion.
just a discussion on the rates.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone have anything else? Okay, we'll move on. Now, general services, we have the options for the creation of a bike share program. And who do we have? We have Mr. Greenwood is going to give us the report tonight.
Good evening. I'm pinch hitting for Monty, who is under the weather. I'm going to tag team this with Bev Moss, who is the co-chair on the Ped Bike Committee. What Monty's asking for is your approval to seek out a company that can give us a bike corral, so to speak, that you may have seen in Seattle. They're locked down, and you can pay for them and move them from place to place within town. There's no cost to us. And this helps us with some things that we've been going towards a bike status, a silver bike status. We're at bronze now. And so it comes in line with 2030 recommendations as well. And so with that, I can bring Bev Moss up here, and she can show you the PowerPoint that Monty has put together. This is not really a PowerPoint.
It's a
got
PDF, right?
Yeah, it's PDF, so you have to just click through.
Okay, click right there and
Yep.
leave it on there. Good, okay, good. I'm not really the co-chair, council members
Welcome,
and
Bev.
mayor. I just have been there a really long time, so I was a good hitman for this. I'm just here as a community person to talk about what the bike share program could do for Coeur d'Alene. I'm sure lots of you have seen other bike share, public bike sharing programs in other towns. They're all over Europe. There's one in Seattle that isn't very viable right now. And I never thought that we'd be able to see that sort of a program in Coeur d'Alene because of our size. But this company, Zagster, that I'm going to talk about real briefly here, is looking for creative ways to help communities that are small and mid-size have public bike sharing programs. And they do it with no cost to the city. So we thought that would be of interest to you. Of course, I had lots of questions like you probably do. What about theft? What about vandalism? What about mechanical breakdowns? What about insurance? And amazingly, this company has thought of all those things. So that's what I'm going to go through here very quickly to just show you what it is. It's a fully automated system that they are proposing. And maybe I should just bring down the anxiety level by telling you they're going to be looking for sponsors for this. This is why it's not going to cost us anything as a city. But this is quite sophisticated, more so than I thought. All the bikes are connected. They do all the racks. They do all the signage. They have tracking technology. They know where those bikes are at all times. They do all the maintenance. They have somebody available 24/7 in case somebody breaks down. There's a number to call and they go fix it. They have industry standard insurance, so everything is insured, and it's sponsorship funded. That's that last one down there. These are the nitty-gritty. You can probably not see that, but just let me read it real quickly. They provide the bikes, the racks, the liability coverage, and all the technology. They have ongoing maintenance, as I talked about before. They help us with marketing. They have marketing materials to get the sponsorships, but also to help people understand how to do it. They've got lots of interesting signage that they will put up for us. They have an account manager that deals with all the pay part of it and how people actually do this. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. This is a little map of Coeur d'Alene. Their idea at this point, they've thought about it a little bit, would be to have 6 proposed stations throughout some of the more populated areas of the city with 40 bikes initially and about 80 parking places. And that's because people take a bike from one place and take it to another and leave it. Or you can take it and bring it back, but you don't have to. So they have to have more than enough bike spaces for all the bikes when people, is it right there? This is the part I don't know. All I can say, it's all by computer, and all I can say is I don't get this part, how they charge people, how they do this. But if Uber works in Coeur d'Alene, this will work in Coeur d'Alene. It's sort of the same technology as Uber uses. And they have ways of, there'll be little stations, and people can either have a card that has money already prepaid on it, or you can use your credit card right at the time. The populations that we'd be targeting, in my opinion, in Coeur d'Alene, certainly tourism. This would be ideal for tourists. But also our young people that can't afford cars, our population in Coeur d'Alene that don't have cars but need to get to work. And I'm a little concerned about this, and these are questions I would have for this company. How do people that maybe can't have a car get a credit card? But there are ways to use cash, and they have that sort of figured out. In terms of sponsorship, they will come and talk to all the businesses, organizations, nonprofits, lots of people to sponsor this for us. And then we'll see those names on bicycle baskets and probably at all the little stations, too. This is some of the publicity they use. This last one over there on the right kind of explains it. That would be a 6x9 poster that would be at some of those stations that would help people understand what they're doing. The next slide, I have no idea what it means, so I'm skipping it. The most important thing on this piece of paper is that everything we need to run a bike share program from A to Z as a flat fee is paid annually, and sponsors will be approached to pay for the entire program initially. There might be a point at which the city could jump in because you're going to be so impressed with how it works. Here are some of the cities that they're working with currently: Fort Collins, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Lakeland, Florida. You'll recognize some of those. Again, these are not large communities. These are towns and cities like Coeur d'Alene. This is a timeline. We're right down here, maybe where we're presenting to City Council in April. We're right here. And they would like to come starting in May and begin to solicit sponsors. But before they do that, they would like to have some assurance that the city's on board with this. So what are we asking you tonight as a city council? Really what they need to know is that you would agree that they'll come into our community and talk to businesses and be the only ones doing that. In other words, we can't ask somebody else. We're not taking bids on this tonight. We would let these people do it. They'd come in and try to find sponsors for us. They would like us to make sure we have a contact, people that will let them know where to go, like who should they contact. And somebody that could answer some questions from sponsors maybe after they've left for the week. And they need somebody they want some assurance from the city that you'd help with some operational needs, permitting if that was necessary, places to put some of those stations. But at this point, all they're asking is that you kind of approve the business plan, that you approve the concept and you not ask anyone else to do that. In exchange, what will they do? They will provide sales, business development, marketing resources to engage sponsors in a fundraising process for bike share. They'll provide and operate a full-service bike share program with at least X number of bikes. We agree on that. Provided sufficient ongoing sponsorship funding. But here's the real good one. They are willing at some point to share revenue back with the city. In other words, they hope to be profitable, and they are open to the fact that some of that money would come back to the city at some point. So really, I think what we're asking for you tonight is just kind of approval to go forward and have them come into our community, see if they can find sponsors to do this. And once they do that, we'd be up and running with no cost at all to the city initially.
Okay. Ron?
Question?
Yeah, Mayor, the Park and Rec Commission had this on their agenda, and they approved the concept of this program. So,
right. So they're on board, but we want you on board.
Amy?
Also, if we have additional questions, I'd recommend we bring Matt Cavasser, who's in the audience, up to the podium. Mac and I both served on a subcommittee working with Zagster and Monty, and he may be able to help answer additional questions and let these two off the hook a little bit.
Thanks.
I don't know if we have questions, but
We'll go to that, Dan, first.
Okay, you mentioned, I think, corrals or something, and I know we have some that down on Sherman are taking up, the space. So where will the space come from?
Well, they're looking at everything from merchant space to street corner type situations, or even parking spaces, and that's one of the commitments they need from the city. If there's a spot that has a parking need to be taken away, they want to have some communication about that situation. The areas they're looking at are North Idaho College, somewhere in the vicinity of the resort or the Chamber of Commerce, somewhere around City Hall here, library, maybe in the area of Bakery by the Lake. The other location would be up at North Kootenai Health was the other location. We looked at those areas as being pretty much hubs. There is one also in Midtown, excuse me.
Yeah.
So they're trying to take a look at where activities are going, where transportation is going to and from, and the utilization of by the public. Resort, easy to see. You've got tourists, you've got downtown traffic, that kind of situation. The college students, and we are aware that the college does have a bike share program primarily towards college students. So this is individuals that just zip in, they want to run downtown, don't want to lose their parking spot, they could jump on a Zagster bike, run down, do their business, come back type situation. Then from the health aspect, Kootenai Health, their staff, their individuals out there, that's sort of a campus area that utilization would take place on. And then the downtown and the river, not downtown, but Midtown and Riverstone areas, more of a commute type thing where people could come in on bikes through the trail system, go back out, dump their bikes off type situation.
Okay. Other questions? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bev, you mentioned that it wasn't viable in Seattle. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Seattle's doing their own program, and they are having to do their own maintenance. And, you know, they're not having a company that comes in and they're trying to do it themselves, and it's been very costly for them. So,
what's preventing them from just coming in and doing it?
that's a good question.
I can't answer that for you other than they feel that they want some community participation as far as reaching out to potential sponsors and being able to locate these things in more public areas, I guess. That's the only thing I can say.
Well, they're wanting us, the government, to go ahead and kind of give our blessing, but wouldn't this just be allowed by code for someone to come in and apply for a permit?
That would be up to city staff to answer that question.
You want to take a stab at that one?
Well, there is nothing preventing them from doing this on their own, other than that they need a place to put the different stands, racks for the bikes, and then they'll need cooperation from whoever owns those properties, whether it be the city or a private property, to be able to do that.
So they could just come in and do this?
They're not any different than any other business, that's correct. And we don't have business licenses as such.
So we already have, are you aware of any private businesses on Sherman or elsewhere that also rent bikes?
You know, there are bike shops, and one of our members of the Ped Bike Committee owns a bike shop here in town, and they strongly feel, or I shouldn't say strongly feel, they feel it's not going to be a competition situation for them, in that this is a totally different customer, I guess you'd say. But I guess when they approached us about looking at this, they were looking at the city participating as far as a cost basis. And when we went back to them and say, this is not going to happen because we don't want to put that burden on the community, this is sort of a new thing they came up with yesterday in a phone call from us. So it's sort of a conference call we had yesterday that, hey, forget those dollars, we'll come in and do it anyway. But we want some participation with the community to help us out to get this thing started.
And they want exclusivity.
That's correct.
Which means that if we were partners with them, someone else wanted to come in and do it, they couldn't do it.
I'm assuming that's the case.
Yeah, I guess I had a question for Randy, is that is going to be difficult for us to do if someone comes in, another private enterprise wants to go to businesses and have something located on their site, on their private site. It would be difficult for us to say no to that group.
That is true, and for the city to grant an exclusive franchise, I'm not sure that that's allowed by statute. And if that's what they're requesting, I'm not sure that that's something the city can do.
Yeah, and I think what we're looking at, if I read what we're trying to do here, is to this says to have staff explore options, come back with a program, which I think this is a great program.
That's correct.
Really
Monty
is.
didn't put that in his timeline, but I always assumed we'd bring this back to you once it was packaged.
Yeah.
So that you could then say, okay, we like this or we don't like this.
Yeah. And I know there's a bit of a timeline there, because when do they want to come into town?
Soon, May, doesn't it say?
Right, and that may be a little bit later than what they asked for, because I'd like to bring this back for once it's packaged.
Mm-hmm.
There seems like there's a few too many unanswered questions, and Randy brings up a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're more than willing to come back and sit down with us
Yeah.
and have those discussions, and I think those are good questions you're asking. They're looking at August to set this thing up, which I think personally is sort of late in the year.
Right.
It probably needs to be kicked off in the spring to get a full season's worth of, trial out of it.
Use, yeah.
And secondly, that the exclusive rights, there is some connection with a contract with the city in reference to revenue coming to the city from those rentals. So those are the discussions that need to take place that we have to bring back to you for for your discussion and review.
Let me read the wording from their sales consultant, what they're asking for, because there's a caveat on it. Provides Zagster the exclusive right to operate a public bike share program in the city if Zagster is able to raise funding for a program launch of so many bikes within a certain period of time. In other words, they're holding themselves to a certain standard. So there is that caveat, but still it would be exclusive.
Yeah, and I don't know, Randy, if we can give them that, can we?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't think we can.
We can sure help them promote the program through the city. It's a great program, but as far as granting that, really, if you have them come into the community and they have however many spots they have, it's doubtful that somebody would come in and compete with them, but I don't know that we can give them that exclusivity.
Yes, in other circumstances, the city can enter into a contract for a entity to provide a service that the city provides. We've done that in the past, but we can't prevent other competitors from coming in on their own and doing the same service.
Yeah. So, Bill, I guess what you're looking for, council, is for us to give direction. We really like the idea.
Correct.
Go back, put a program together with some more details to it, and then bring it back.
Bring it back to you.
But I think that
That's
everybody's
correct.
in support of it. Kiki.
I actually wasn't in support of it. So, and here's why I wanted to explain it, because if you read the general services, I think Amy read a note for me, and it was, I just don't think the community's right. I was in Boise and saw these bike share programs. I got really excited about it and thought they were great, and I said, we should do this. And I talked with Hillary for quite a while, and then I did some research on my own, and these are just some things that the research I did, if you would bring it up with them, I'd appreciate it. Seattle's system, if it wasn't operated by Zagster, is that what you're saying? Right. So their city had a $1.4 million bailout this year for that program. And it was because nobody was riding the bikes, and the two primary reasons is there was insufficient infrastructure. They didn't have enough of locations where the bikes would be close to the buses, and they didn't have enough infrastructure for the bikes. So I don't know if we're there yet. The other thing, Zagster's blog cited that small cities under 100,000 have to have an adequate bus or rail or other transportation system to support this sort of transport. So that was one of their things. So I think that would be important to talk to them. How are they going to go past that? The other thing is, Forbes said it doesn't serve the underprivileged, so it's difficult to have nonprofits want to get on board with it because of that reason. And that non-car users in rural areas like ours are very limited. There's not a huge, the highest percentage of people here have cars, so that's tough. And the last thing I had was that it isn't totally no cost if the city staff is working on it. So I don't like this is totally no cost to the city unless Monty and the crew check out on their time card. It is a little cost to the city. So
We should clarify to say that there's no capital
there's some staff
cost.
time. There's
So
no
the
capital
staff
cost.
time would
Thank
be
you.
involved.
I appreciate it,
Yes.
because staff time is a cost to the city. And so that was where I kind of felt like, because of the infrastructure, because of all of those other things, and in reading that this bailout had happened and that there's many small cities that have tried this on their own, and even Zagster's blog kind of didn't look like we were a profile to have a successful program. So that was my reason. I think they're awesome. I would probably use them. I think they're great, but I just want to make sure we're getting those things into the conversation. That's all I had.
Okay. If this is a pilot program, right, they agree that there's no city liability, and for the most part, it's driven by members of the PED Bike Committee.
Correct. Yep.
I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
So we would be looking then for a motion to direct staff, if someone is so inclined.
Also move.
Second.
Motion and a second. So the motion and the second is direct staff to explore options for the creation of a bike share program. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried.
I'm a nay. I'm sorry. I'm still not thinking it's,
Me and Kiki.
so I don't know where Woody's at with it, but.
Okay, so we had 3 yeses and 2 noes.
Yep.
So motion carried. Yep. Thank you very much. Now we will go on to resolution number 16-022, new fee schedule moving fee for burn permits. And we have Craig Etherton, who's going to give us the proposal.
Mayor and council, thanks for having me here. I promise I'll be real quick, especially if you don't have any questions.
Don't count on it from me, apparently.
We're coming forward today looking to repeal the requirement for a $2 fee to be charged for a yard waste burning permit within the city of Coeur d'Alene. The reason that we're currently looking to do away with that fee is we would like to get involved and join up with the IDL's statewide burn permit program. So it's an online program. You set up an account, enter your address, the type of burning that you'd like to do, and it shoots you out a permit. The big problem with that is they do not have a way to collect fees, so we couldn't join. The program's been going for, I think, the last 2 summers. So we didn't join the program initially when it got started. One, because we wanted to make sure it was going to work. It was a new program, and also because we knew that we had fees attached to our burn permits through city ordinance. So currently we charge $2 for a 10-day yard waste burning permit. Last year we issued 154 permits for a grand revenue to the general fund of $308. So at this point, and I think the year before it was around $400. So historically, we're in that $300 to $500 range for burn permits. So from our standpoint, we don't have any internal program that is specifically funded by those revenues. So the money comes in, it goes into the general fund, and it's used as general fund dollars are used. So if we were to forgo those dollars, that revenue stream, we're not going to lose any program within our department. It's very easy for the customer to use. I've just in training and working with the crews, I've issued several permits to people who work for us who live outside of the city. The IDL is ready to go live as soon as we tell them that we can do that. If it's your prerogative to do so, to do that. As a interesting bit of history, as I got the original resolution from Renata on this, I think Ron and Councilman English voted on the first proposal to establish the fees. So, so thank you for many years of fees.
Sounds like it was a good idea.
Okay, any questions for Craig?
I think Chief or Inspector Atherton asked us not to ask any questions, so
I think we should honor that. So we have some council action.
I move to approve resolution number 16-020, approving the new fee schedule, removing fee for burn permits.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Amy.
McEvers? Gookin?
yes.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Edinger?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our last item for tonight, which is discussion. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but discussion regarding amendments to Municipal Code, Chapter 5.68, entitled Child Care Facilities. Staff report by Kathy Lewis and many others.
We have a great big long report. So.
Oh, well, we're hoping not.
No,
but.
just kidding. Well, I want to introduce some people here with me tonight. We have a real active Child Care Commission this year, and with that, Iris Ziegler is the chairman. She's also recent past regional director of the National Association of Family Child Care, representing Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. She currently runs Iris House. I have Annette Durock. She's from Panhandle Health, and her official title is Registered Environmental Health Specialist and Child Care Coordinator for Panhandle Health. She does all our child care inspections for the city. So each year when we inspect every single child care in the city, this is who does it. With that, I have Samantha Tuskin.
She's the Child Care Resource Center Program Coordinator, and she oversees a staff that helps parents find providers, provide technical, can't talk tonight, tired, provides technical assistance to providers and mentoring, helps providers find training and resources for business practices, and she oversees the Idaho Child Care Program for North Idaho. So lots of busy people. And we have, last but not least, we have Barbie Harrison, and she is the administrator for the Christ the King Child Care Center. And she is also past president of the NIAC Association here in Coeur d'Alene and served on the state, a lot of boards at the state level as well. So lots of credentials here. With that, we're going to go quickly. We're coming before you tonight with a presentation. The Child Care Commission is recommending 6 different changes to our child care codes, and so because we had so many, legal thought that it might be better to give you a presentation on why we want these changes. And then our request to the council tonight would be to bring these forward in the ordinance form at the next council meeting. So with that, we'll do a quick presentation. Hey, me? There we go. Okay. Okay, with that, Iris is going to do the first one.
Oh, okay. Okay, we are asking the council to, right now we have 8 hours of continued education. That's in our code. And as you all know, professionally, we all need to be staying on top of this, and especially so with children. So we're asking to increase it by 2 more hours per year to 10. For providers. There is a lot of training here in our community, fabulous training. 4 hours can be done on a computer, and the rest of it, they connect with people that are in their profession, as well as getting a chance to mingle and talk about issues that are going on in early childhood. So we would like to increase it by 2 more hours in that application. If you have any questions? Nope.
Samantha.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Samantha Tushkan, and I'll be presenting on Safe Sleep. So for the Safe Sleep requirements in child care settings, there's a couple different requirements that we're asking to be included into code. The first is that all child care providers, whether they're directors or staff working at the child care, be required to attend a one-time Safe Sleep training to educate them on the Safe Sleep requirements, which are American Academy Pediatric recommended. Along with that they start doing a safe sleep policy to incorporate the American Academy of Pediatric practices in their facility, and then they also start doing safe sleep practices in their facility. So the most important things with those practices are babies are put to sleep on their backs with nothing in their sleep environment except a pacifier, that they back to sleep, that they have a safe sleep approved sleep environment, which is a pack and play or a crib, so they can't have a car seat, a rocker, or a swing in their sleep environment, and that's the most important thing with the safe sleep. The reason that we're asking this is because of the SIDS increased risk for SIDS deaths and the liability that puts on the child cares, and that if they do not do safe sleep, they could have a exclusion by a medical professional that they would be able to have the child not have safe sleep practices. The other code requirement that we're asking for is to prohibit e-smoking in the facilities. So currently, state requirements and our local child care requirements for City of Coeur d'Alene have a smoking not allowed into the child care premises or within the distance. We're asking that electronic vaporing devices be included in that code, and that is not only for the safe sleep health for the children, but also for just the general health for the children, and that's for 25 feet of the premises and within the vehicles, because we have a lot of child care providers that transport the children. And they also have to keep that in a lockbox out of the reach of children while they're at the facility. I stand for questions.
Any questions? No.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Annette Durock. As Kathy indicated, I am the health inspector. I visit facilities once a year or a little more if there's a few complaints. So I wanted to talk about temperature control. we do, in this area, we get those heat and cool extremes. And with children, it's pretty important to maintain an average temperature that keeps them, one, comfortable, and two, avoiding heat stress. And so this temperature control ordinance really has a couple of elements. One is it specifies the temperatures. So in the wintertime, it would be 68 degrees to 75 degrees would be upper or lower and upper parameters. And in the summertime, it would be 68 to 82 degrees, accounting for acclimation. So that's one of the elements. The other element then gives you the opportunity, if you're outside of those parameters, to go ahead and mitigate the circumstance with whatever it takes to either cool the facility or bring the facility up to temperature. Kids have quite a bit more difficult time regulating temperature than adults do. They get hotter faster, they dehydrate faster because they have greater body surface area. So just maintaining that normal kind of temperature zone for them is kind of important. The other aspect is providers. When you get a provider that's wilting because it's 89 degrees in their facility, they're not doing a service to our kids. And so it's just really kind of a reasonable, common sense approach to keeping them healthy. I stand for questions.
Questions? No.
Good evening. I know we all really want to go, so mine's going to be really quick.
Oh, we love it here.
The state of Idaho.
There's no snoring yet.
No snoring. The state of Idaho child care licensing requires that all centers and home facilities maintain liability and fire insurance. As a city ordinance, our codes must be stricter than the state's. And currently, we do not have this provision in our code. So we would like to add this to our code.
Okay.
Any staff questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Last but not
You're
least.
getting off easy.
Yes. One of the things we want to do right now at the current time, providers can submit their paperwork up to December 31st. So technically on January 1st, they have no license, but they're still operating. So what we'd like to do is put a provision in place. These are all the things we do. I'm not going to read them all to you because it would be boring to you, but it takes a lot of time. And so what we're going to do, would like to do, if the council so desires, would be to have everything due to the city by December 1st annually. That gives us 30 days to process all the applications. We do all these different things, and you've got the handout in your packet so you know what they are. But one of the things that we found is we also don't have a very strict consequence if you don't have your license in place. And so we have everybody, they procrastinate a little bit more each year, and we still have some right now we're finishing up licensing on. The paperwork came in incorrect, that type of thing, we're trying to clean it up. So one of the things you want to do if they fail to submit the deadline, a double fee for any kind of license. If it's not completed by December 31st, the individual provider cannot go to work. So this will put some pressure on them to get their licenses and their training in place. And then if the facility is not complete, then they'll have to close until they get their act together. And then at the end of it, the facility, if they are hiring a non-licensed provider or doing that, then it could subject them to revocation of their license altogether. Once we revoke a license, there is a 2-year period before it can be reinstated. So with that, I stand for questions.
Any questions from council? She says she has 2 questions.
I'll be quick. So Pantelleria Council said they inspect these facilities once a year. So is that who the code enforcement is under?
Yes.
So
Panhandle Health.
Panhandle Health.
We have both our own code enforcement. There's a statewide.
Kathy, stand in front of the mic.
Oh. There's a statewide, it's called Remedy. Anyone can call in a complaint, and if any of them are to the city with a city licensed provider, the complaint comes back to me, and it also goes to, if it's a health issue involved as well, it goes to Panhandle Health as well. We work together. Sometimes we'll have both code enforcement visiting the facility and the health inspector. Sometimes it'll be just one of us, depending on what the nature of the complaint is.
So our code enforcement does as
but our
well.
code enforcement does it too. One of the things that the police have agreed to do is, with this temperature control, is to buy the monitors where we can actually measure the temperature in a
facility too. And in the language, we've put in there that we'd have 2 people, can also take 2 inspectors to determine whether it's really unreasonable or not.
That's fair. So then this, if you mandate training like for, which I think is great, the SIDS training, is it available?
So,
Sorry, we get feedback.
currently, there's
Sorry.
multiple methods of this training. Idaho STARS, which is funded by the Department of Health and Welfare, has implemented a free option of the training because the state will be going forward with implementing Safe Sleep as a requirement come 2017 by the Child Care Block Grant. So there is a free option of this training online, and then we also have face-to-face options, which have a fee. But people who are part of Idaho STARS also has options of a $200 scholarship a year to pay for any of those fees for face-to-face trainings. So there's lots of options that these providers will have for free trainings to obtain this required training. And the 10-hour training for ongoing professional development.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Something you may not be aware of too, last week ago, okay, I'll lose track of time, we had 100 people in this room. I went through Safe Sleep's training of providers here that was sponsored by our city's Child Care Commission. But good for you.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for a great presentation and thank you for waiting
Yes.
with us all night
Well
and
worth
your
it.
commitment to the children in our community.
Yeah,
so
your work is
I really
important.
appreciate you.
You guys do great work. I don't think the public knows all the work you guys put into things.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to make amendments to Municipal Code Chapter 5.68 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you.
second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Looked up and went, do we actually have a quorum still?
We will call our meeting to order tonight. We do have one of our members that is actually in Washington, D.C., so for the council, if you please speak loudly and directly into your mic, and then anyone that comes up to speak there also speak loudly so the person that we have in Washington, D.C. can hear us. So Amy will test whether he can hear us, and you can do the roll call, please.
Gookin?
Here?
Miller? Here. McEvers?
Yo, I'm here.
Evans?
Here.
English?
Here.
Ettinger?
Here.
So we will rise for our invocation. Do we have Kurt Wandry here tonight?
Let's unite our hearts in prayer. Almighty God, most gracious and caring Father of us all, we give you thanks for the beautiful sunshine and warm days, reflecting the light and joy of our risen and living Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We give you thanks for this beautiful community of Coeur d'Alene and the abundance of blessings you've given us. We thank you for Mayor Steve Widmeyer and the City Council members, and pray that you guide their discussion and decisions, give them wisdom and strength to know your plan for us and to do it, so the people of this community may be blessed. Watch over all who serve in this city's government and unite them in fulfilling the mission and vision for Coeur d'Alene to truly be a thriving city of excellence. Extend your hand of heavenly benediction over us all and keep us always in your loving care and grace. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord. Amen.
Kate, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda tonight. We will move forward to our first item on the agenda, which is resolution number 16-020, contract with Northern State PAC LLC doing business as Coeur d'Alene Garbage for solid waste and single stream recycling collection. Kind of wanted to give a little bit of the outline of how we're going to lay this out. Is that we're going to have a staff report by Randy Adams. We're going to give all of the three bidders an opportunity for 5 minutes each to speak. The order will go in, and we'll go with Waste Management, Sunshine, and then Coeur d'Alene Garbage. Then we're going to give an opportunity for people that want to make public comment on this issue to come up, and then Randy will do a summation of that time. So, Randy, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I can't tell you how happy I am that my inaugural presentation to the City Council is on such a straightforward and uncomplicated matter. Tonight, I'm here to present staff's recommendations regarding both the low bid for the city's solid waste and single-stream recycling collection contract and on the terms of the contract itself. The city's finance director, Mr. Tymason, has presented council with a staff report and recently an addendum to that report. Now, it would be fair to say that a lot of questions have been raised about the request for proposals, the bid process, the bids themselves, the staff reports, and the proposed contract. In summary, it is the opinion of the City Attorney's Office that the RFP process complied with state law. We believe it was also thorough. The RFP itself was 28 pages in length. Prices were obtained from bidders on 141 separate line items. The apparent low bid was determined based on 29 separate line items. The process, in your legal counsel's opinion, was not flawed or backward or unfair to any bidder. Idaho law requires that contracts for services such as solid waste collection must be awarded pursuant to a competitive sealed bid process, with one exception that's not applicable here. Under this process, the city is required to accept the lowest bid made by a qualified bidder who complies with the bid procedures and whose bid meets these specifications. The RFP stated that proponents shall complete a base proposal based on services described in the existing contract, with the costs of proposal alternatives separately identified. The RFP was published on February 25th. The bids were due on March 24th. A question was received from potential bidders about how the low bid would be determined. The answer provided on March 11th was that the city will select the lowest bidder on the base proposal pricing. Thus, it was clear as of March 11th that the low bid would be determined without consideration of the alternatives, including glass recycling. This is a process that has been approved by the Idaho Supreme Court. Idaho law further requires that any objections to specifications or bidding procedures must be in writing and received by the city at least 3 business days prior to the bid opening. No objections were received prior to the opening of bids. Finally, the law is clear that the lowest number, as determined by the terms of the RFP, is the low bid. The law does not allow the low bid from a qualified bidder to be rejected based on an evaluation of non-monetary considerations. So moving on to the bids in this case, the city received 3 bids. Each of the bids provided a base proposal as required, as well as some ideas for addressing the 4 alternatives, including glass recycling. The finance director determined that each of the bidders was qualified,
that each complied with the bidding procedures, and that each met the specifications. The lowest bid was submitted by Northern State PAC LLC, DBA Coeur d'Alene Garbage for $196,026.07 per month. The second lowest bid was submitted by Sunshine Disposal and Recycling, Inc. for $230,381.84, or about $34,000 per month more than the apparent low bid. The third bid was submitted by Waste Management, Inc. for $241,630.52, or about $45,000 per month more than the apparent low bid. One of the purposes of the RFP was to try to determine the cost of recycling or reusing glass, which the city has not been offering up to this point. The proposals from the three bidders contained different suggestions. Once the apparent low bid was determined, the finance director and I began to work with the apparent low bidder to determine how best to create a system of glass recycling or reuse. Everything was on the table, and we believe that we've reached a solution that will allow city residents to recycle glass in an efficient and economical manner for the benefit of our community and the environment. Sunshine Disposal had suggested in its bid setting up 3 glass depots around the city. Coeur d'Alene Garbage suggested something similar in its bid, but called them drop boxes instead of depots. We're happy to report that the contract presented for your consideration tonight implements this depot system, with the number and locations of the depots entirely within the discretion of the city. The cost of this system is undetermined because the number of depots has not been determined, but Coeur d'Alene Garbage has agreed to monitor the depots and deliver the glass to appropriate vendors at its actual cost. Coeur d'Alene Garbage has guesstimated that the cost could be as little as $1,000 per month, depending on the number of depots and how far the glass will have to be hauled, which is still considerably under the second lowest bid. The city will monitor those costs to assure compliance with the contract. And I understand that there also have been discussions with KEA, which supports the depot system I've described. With respect to the contract itself, I want to highlight a few points. First, we began with the existing contract between Kootenai County and Waste Management and used it as a template. Most of the provisions of that contract are unchanged in the proposed contract. Some of the changes that were made include the following. In paragraph 3.0 has been modified so that it's clear that Coeur d'Alene Garbage will provide all new carts for both residential and commercial customers. Paragraph 3.4.1 of the existing contract required an office in Coeur d'Alene. The proposed contract requires an office simply in Kootenai County. Now, the actual specifications in the RFP did not specify a Coeur d'Alene office. The low bidder's office is in Post Falls, and staff feels that this location won't adversely affect customer service. In fact, bills can still be paid in person here at City Hall. A definition of the word extras has also been added to the proposed contract in both Schedule A and B, so that customers will know when an extra charge can be made. That was something which was unclear in the existing contract. A change was made to paragraph 3.6 of Schedule B, which some have raised questions about. It now says, quote, except when circumstances beyond contractor's control prevent compliance, it shall be a violation of the contract, essentially to fail to recycle collected recyclables. In other words, recyclable materials will not simply end up in the landfill. Now, the phrase circumstances beyond the contractor's control is called an act of God provision. The existing contract actually has a similar provision. And an act of God exception is standard language in most contracts because it's not fair to make a party liable for events outside its control. Therefore, staff is recommending that council award the contract to the low bidder, Northern State PAC LLC, DBA Coeur d'Alene Garbage, and approve the contract as presented. If council has any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Questions for Randy?
I'll cough up one.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Randy, I've gotten some questions regarding the extras you were talking about.
Yes.
And what the charges would be. And the issues were, so you have a bag of garbage or a trash bag sitting next to your bin or a cart. The lid is ajar, or the carts are too close together. How are those addressed?
The question of whether carts are too close together is not addressed in the contract. In my experience, a note is left and the customer is asked to separate the carts by a certain distance. In terms of the lid being cracked open, under the existing contract, essentially a full cart is what each customer is paid for, and the lid must be closed completely. We decided that there should be some leeway in that for the customers, and Coeur d'Alene Garbage has agreed to that, 3 inches. It's not a mathematical precision. The drivers are not going to get out and measure the 3 inches. That kind of defeats the purpose. However, if someone has more trash than fits in their can, such as bags beside it, that's considered an extra. That is like the start of a second can, and it would be charged at the rate of the first can.
And do those rules apply to the recycle carts as well?
I would assume it does, yes.
So, because right now I know we can overstuff the recycle bin if we want to.
Excuse me?
The recycle bin, the blue one.
Right.
So if I have more cardboard, I can stack it up, and there's no charge on that.
Correct.
At least that's my understanding.
Okay. And that was, the recycle bins were not specific. Well, I take that back. And Schedule B deals with the recyclables, and that term extras is in Schedule B as well.
So we're charging now for recycling?
Only if there's extras.
So this is new.
Well, and maybe I'll have to ask the contractor. I don't know. I can't answer your question at this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Randy? Ron?
Yeah, Randy, now we could turn down this contract, correct?
Are you asking if you can reject all bids? Yeah. That is a provision in the state law.
Could we reject all bids?
Correct.
And then ask for to go over again, rebid?
That is a provision in the statute, yes. And it requires the exercise of discretion on the part of the council to do that, which in turn requires that the council give its reasoning, give a rationale for that action.
Kiki?
I just have a couple things, Randy. Thank you for going through that. Was a comprehensive summary. But one of the questions that I think you and I had discussed is the legality or a statute that provides the ability to negotiate an ad alternate item. And if you can just address that for me. My thought was that if you go out as an RFI, a request for information, you can get all these creative proposals. But an RFP should say, this is your proposal, and here's the scope of work and what the price of it is, and that the bidder should know that that is going to be what they're bound to when they submit that price in the ad alternate. They should also know that the ad alternate may never be used, and that it was told to them that any or all of them, it was never really said that any or all of them may be used. And I know that we discussed that, nobody objected within 3 days to the fact that it said that the low bidder would get the award. I just want you to talk a little bit about this negotiation process in an ad alternate.
The Supreme Court has talked about, at least in one case, about a situation where there was a base bid, some alternates, some add-ons. And the court has said that the that the governmental entity can make its decision as to what it's going to consider when deciding who the low bidder is. In this case, the documents provided to all of the bidders indicated that the low bid would be based on the base proposal and not the alternates. The alternates were put in there to solicit suggestions, ideas from the bidders as to what could be done with each of those. And for the ease of reference, let's talk about glass recycling. So there was an alternate that asked, what can we do about glass recycling? How much would it cost for single stream? Can we do some other things? The idea was not to lock the bidders into these alternates, but to get ideas for the city to try to work on these alternates to see if it would fit within the budget, within the plan for the collection contract. And so once there was an apparent low bidder based on the base proposal, then the process became, let's talk to the apparent low bidder, see what ideas they have, what can work. They weren't locked into what they put in their bid. And in fact, Coeur d'Alene Garbage did mention drop boxes. And so the discussion went to depots because it was felt that single stream recycling was not practical, not too expensive, and would damage various things like the quality of the recycling material. It would put in jeopardy any rebate from the county. So the depot idea was settled upon, at least preliminarily, as a viable means to allow the public to recycle glass.
Okay, and so then follow-up to that then is that even in the contract that we have right now, we really don't have a price on what that would be, that ad alternate would be.
Not at this point. That's going to depend on how many depots the city decides it wants to have, whether we want to start off with 3, for example, whether we go to 5, 7, 10. You know, those are things that the city has the power to control, and it may depend upon price.
Okay. And so I guess where I'm going is if we don't have a price, then it says in the contract, let me back up. If what we're charged to do with here today is to approve a resolution to contract, we all had questions about the RFP, but we're here to approve a resolution to contract with Northern State, with Coeur d'Alene Garbage. But the contract, can we award the low bidder without approving the contract?
Yes, you probably can, as a technical matter. The contractor has indicated that it is starting to order the new cans. It's a little problematic to say you're the low bidder, but we're not going to sign a contract, and yet we're supposed to be up and running by July 1st. So you can do that, and if there are terms that you would like to discuss in terms of the contract itself, that can be adjusted even now.
Well, it's my feeling, you know, the RFP and the way that all came together, I had questions about how quickly it came out and how it worked, and that I didn't feel that there were some things, I think there's some things that procedurally could have been done differently, but I don't argue with the fact that there is an apparent low bidder and they followed the directions and all of the bidders had the same directions so that it should be awarded. But I have some real issues with the language in the contract. So I'm wanting to try to determine whether we have to hash those all out right now and change the specific language in the contract, or if we can separate the two decisions.
You can do it in two decisions. Obviously, the city can, the council can say that we want such and such in the contract, but that's still going to have to go back to the apparent low bidder to see if that's okay with them. I don't know if we can do that all in this meeting.
And you touched on one of the things that the delivery of the recyclables, 3.6 is the section, I think, that I had some questions about, and I suppose that the bidder can answer those as well. But the contract says that it shall use its best reasonable efforts to deliver the recyclable material. So I guess to make it short, I compared this with the previous contract, and there was a lot of language added that I just wonder where that came from. Best reasonable efforts, and also that the contractor may act as their own broker. So what it sounds like is in delivering recyclables, they can deliver the recyclables to themselves. And then where does the contract allow what happens to those recyclables was one piece.
The contract does require that recyclables be recycled. And I'd have to look and get you the specific section, but it does specifically. We recognize that the comments made at General Services were valid, and that language was added. I think I did explain the best efforts, reasonable efforts. That language came from legal in terms of that's the type of contract that is normally entered into in these situations where the contractor is required to do it without destroying its business. In other words, best reasonable efforts does give it some flexibility if something becomes horribly expensive, or trucks break down, or there's a blizzard, or something along those lines. They aren't in breach of contract because they don't pick up right away or right on the day requested.
Right. And I guess that glass aside, which is kind of mixed into this same paragraph section, it looks like there were just a lot more ambiguity in the contract language surrounding the management of recyclables itself. So I guess I still have some concerns about that.
Okay. And if I understand what you're asking, in the existing contract, there is a requirement that it be delivered to a specific organization.
Or it doesn't. I don't know that it says a specific name of an organization. It says the county's assigned broker.
Or correct, and the county can change the broker.
The county can change their broker. But
so there is that
right,
too.
And this one says that taking the glass out of it is that it has the circumstances beyond their control and that could be transferred to a third party, and also then the vendor of the contractor's choice as to where the material will go, or they could receive the material themselves and
act as their own vendor. In other words, sell it to a recycling entity itself. That's the intent. It says, except when circumstances beyond contractor's control prevent compliance, it shall be a violation of the contract to transfer to a third party or to deposit any recyclable material with other waste or for a purpose other than recycling. So I think that really binds the contractor to recycle, unless there are circumstances beyond its control, an act of God.
Okay, good, thank you. And then the glass piece is in the same paragraph, but it kind of says, the way I'm interpreting it, so help me out here, is that the contractor shall monitor the locations and, when necessary, remove the glass to an appropriate facility using its best efforts to recycle the glass if economically feasible. And the cost to the city for this program shall be no more than the contractor's actual expenses for the program. So I kind of, coming from my history, I thought, man, that's a great piece of business, because if the economy is not good and there isn't an appropriate, it doesn't say who decides what the appropriate facility is, and it doesn't say what best efforts that might be. And not that this, I'm please not insinuating, are you guys just bearing with me here?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not insinuating that this would happen, but I thought, if the glass market was such that you had to pay to get rid of glass, and then we were in a contractual agreement as a city with someone, and our constituents believed that they were depositing this glass in a box that was being taken to a glass recycling center, and then the economy became such that that commodity was not worth transferring. In fact, you couldn't give it away. Then we have a situation where this person by contract could just say, well, my expense is overtime on the weekends to have my people take the glass to the landfill. And so I know that that's a horrible scenario, and I'm positive it wouldn't happen, but this language says that it could, in my view. Is that?
Well, the city is the contractee of this contract, and the city has a lot of say in this. And if they are approached by a contractor, whether it be the low bidder in this case or any contractor, and the contractor's not doing what the city thinks it should, the city can require compliance. There may be argument back and forth in terms of what is best efforts. But the city ultimately is the judge of that. The city can terminate the contract. The city has the power to modify the contract explicitly if the contractor is not complying in the city's viewpoint. So I think best efforts does give some flexibility, but it's really flexibility on the city's part to allow something if the circumstances warranted. And as I said, the city will be monitoring the costs. There's actually a provision we added to the existing contract that requires them to report the amount of collectible or recyclables collected each month on a monthly basis, so we know how much is being collected. We're going to know where it's going. We're going to know all of the cost and all of those things, both for the standard recyclables as well as for the glass. And so the city's going to have a monthly basis to look at these things and deal with the contractor as we would with any other contract.
Thank you. And I'm really speaking to, I mean, I am one of those glass recycling proponents, and I want to be fair so that the folks who have been emailing and contacting us and saying, we really want glass and you need to support glass, but and they have some creative outlets for them, but those creative outlets may be cost prohibitive for this particular hauler to utilize, and this, I just want to be open about the contract that this contract wouldn't require that hauler to use that creative outlet if it wasn't economically feasible for them to do it.
Well, but as the contractor is hauling glass at cost, the city is going to have a say in this. The city is paying for it. It's not being added to the bill of the customers, but the city will pay for it. So if the contractor comes to the city and says it's going to cost us $1 million to recycle this one depot of glass, the city can say, no, we don't want to go there. So it really is within the city's power to control the recycling of the glass. And as I mentioned, there have been discussions with KEA, and I know that the apparent low bidder has been in contact with a lot of other entities to determine what glass, where glass can go, what it can be, how it can be recycled, how it can be reused. So that's an ongoing effort, and it's not going to end with the signing of the contract.
Right.
It's going to be an ongoing basis as we look at this month to month to month to month, because we may start off with 3 glass depots, and the public may be filling them in a matter of a few days. So we will have to add some additional glass depots. It's something the city is in control of.
Thanks. I have one more unless somebody wants to jump in.
You go right. You're on a roll.
I kind of am on a roll. One of the other things that was in here was that there are some items in here that can be negotiated annually in the contract. Am I right? And I'm not sure of the paragraph that's at.
There is a provision in the contract for a price increase that was in the existing contract as well. It's bracketed, if that's what you're talking about. It's bracketed by 1.5%,
okay,
a minimum, and a 2.75% maximum. But it's also tied to a specific federal figure, if that's what you're talking about. But in terms of the contract, those can be modified at will at any time.
Okay, and I think that's because of this glass issue that's incorporated now in with the rest of the recycling and how that commodity changes so rapidly. It's something that I just want to make sure before we get into an agreement on this that we have the ability to control that. So that's my effort, and to be able to be what's that word, transparent.
Yes.
And tell the KEA and our constituents this is exactly what's happening with the glass so that they aren't under a false assumption based on, this is what's happening with the glass. It's going back in to make waterfall bases and highways when it may not be. So I just want to assure we've got that mechanism within the contract. I'll read my notes.
Thank you. Dan?
A couple of things. Just, this is a long contract, 10 years plus additional 6. So just in general, what kind of assurances are there for the public, the taxpayers, the city, that we have, if something really went sideways, we have the ability to enforce it?
The contract does provide specifically find that here in a moment. The city reserves the right to renegotiate terms of this contract in part or in total, should new technologies or economies indicate that it is in the city's best interests to do so. That is language from the existing contract as well. So the county had reserved that right, and we continued that right.
Okay. Well, and I think that answers some of mine and some of the previous. And if I can summarize what I think I heard, because we're, low bidder price, that's the way the system is built. At the same time, we all had a great concern about the option for glass recycling. And if I'm summarizing right, that the option for glass recycling will be addressed. People are going to have an opportunity to do that. It's going to be provided, and it is not going to go back into the landfill, the glass.
That is the intent of the contract. That was the purpose of negotiating these terms. Also in 5.7, the city has the right to terminate the contract for failure of performance with 30 days written notice. So there is an out as well there.
And again, I think what you said before, too, just to emphasize that whatever we agree to now, we are not locked into for 16 years. If we come up with a creative option and different things, we can adjust and fine-tune going forward. So,
yes, I agree with that, and that is the intent. Thanks.
Any other questions for Randy? Amy?
In section 3.6, back to the recyclables, the second sentence states, contractor shall use its best reasonable efforts to deliver the recyclable material, except glass, to a vendor of the contractor's choice. And then a couple sentences later, it lists several options. One of those being, actually two, being as far away as Seattle, Pasco, and then some local options. Is the price of the delivery of the recyclables included in the low bid, or is it possible that we would receive an extra charge if the recyclables needed to be transported to Seattle or Pasco or a further distance?
All of the costs for recyclables are included in the base bid, other than the glass depots. That is the only separate issue.
If I can step on that for a second. So if they're sending it to Seattle, you're saying our costs don't go up?
That is the way the contract is written, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Except for glass.
Did you have another?
Nope, Kiki asked all the others.
Ron.
No, thank you.
Yeah, two things I want to mention. Now, Andy, you said that this contract was drawn up and the RFPs went over. It was Troy that did the negotiating, basically, right? Was the mayor or any council member involved in that?
Not directly, no. I was there. Troy was there. The proposed contract, I believe, was circulated multiple times in terms of, and it was changed multiple times, circulated to council and the mayor.
Well, it was my understanding when we did this and we were going to send out the RFPs, that we'd get them back, and then the mayor and the council would sit down and discuss it. And that didn't happen. The 6 elected officials weren't involved in it at all. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dan?
I have another question on what Ron said earlier. You were talking about the other option, which is that we can throw out all 3 bids.
Yes.
And you mentioned that that was at council's discretion, or you said it had to be used the word discretion. Can you repeat what you said?
That's what the statute says. In the council's discretion, the bids can be thrown out and the matter rebid. The case law on the exercise of discretion is what requires the council to articulate a rationale, a reason that is a legitimate reason to throw out the bids. And I've looked at the case law on that, and there's very little. Some of the things that have been deemed to be a rationale would be if all the bids were too high, and the court has allowed a city to throw out all the bids because of that. But it's something along those lines, something concrete, something that was unexpected.
And in this case, the motion that was made was to go out and obtain bids and look into glass recycling and I believe all the other good things that Troy just said. And is this what staff did?
That is what staff did.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Randy right now?
Just one. This is a side note, but why does the contract not mention any requirements that the main contract passes through to any subcontractors?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The contract doesn't mention any requirements that the subs are bound by the main contract, except for in the hold harmless section. So is that just something that the template didn't have, or was it?
The template did not have that. If that's something the council wants to put in, I'm sure it can be put in. We've been in the bid by Coeur d'Alene Garbage. They said they typically do not use subcontractors. They might use subcontractors to help deliver the new containers, but typically don't use subcontracts. But in the absence of an expression in the contract regarding that, then the subcontractors would be deemed to be bound by the terms of the contract.
Okay.
All right, I think that's everything for now. Randy, thank you. I'd like to invite a representative for Waste Management, if they'd like to come up, and we have 5 minutes for a presentation from Waste Management.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Steve Roberg. I'm the District Manager for Waste Management of Idaho. As a lifelong area resident and employee of Waste Management for 33 years, I am deeply aware of what the residents of Coeur d'Alene and the City Council wanted from the selection process. The continuation of an outstanding recycling and trash program with the addition of curbside glass recycling. Waste Management was the only company that offered curbside glass collection, and our single-stream recycling proposal with curbside glass was the least costly option of all proposals. As council members, I believe that you have the responsibility to do what's right for the citizens of Coeur d'Alene and provide them with what they desire and what they expect from their service providers. Waste Management has previously offered to extend the existing contract to provide the city time to revisit the process. I urge you to please take advantage of this offer of extra time to explore your options. I will now yield the podium to Andrew Kenefick, Waste Management Senior Legal Counsel.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. As Steve mentioned, I'm Andrew Kenefick, Legal Counsel for Waste Management. In the short time that I have, I wanted to make 4 points for you. First, this is the City Council's decisions to make. You can decide how this process unfolds. I watched some of the video from the February meeting, and I had the distinct impression that the City Council members were expecting to receive from staff a variety of alternatives for you to consider, you to debate, you to decide which one looked best, so then you could move the process forward. as opposed to being presented with a fait accompli, that being, here it is, here's the bidder, here's the proposal that we can accept. If the proposal, or the request for proposal did not give what you expected, you can elect to start over. The RFP itself gives you the right to reject all bids and rebid, and the state statute does as well. Second point, don't let time pressure get in the way of making a careful decision. Yes, the current contract ends on June 30th. However, as Steve said, Waste Management is more than willing to agree to a reasonable extension. This will give you time to redo the RFP, ask the questions you want, get the answers you want, and make sure that it generates the kind of proposals you want it to see. The third point, Waste Management has pointed out to the city that this decision ought to be made first by identifying what package of alternatives the city wants, then choosing the lowest bidder for that package. That makes logical sense. If you're looking for the best deal to buy a car, you don't figure out the best deal by calling up 3 car dealers and asking, what's the cheapest car you have on the lot? You first want to figure out what kind of car you want to buy. Then you might call the 3 car dealers and figure out who can give you the best price for that car. That same logic applies here. First, figure out what alternatives you want. Do you want curbside glass recycling? Do you want new carts? Once you've decided on the best combination of alternatives, then the next step is to figure out which bidder has the lowest price. Yet, in this RFP, the city is proposing to go with the low bidder without considering how much the alternatives offered by that low bidder will cost. The city might want some of these alternatives. For example, if you want glass included in single stream, the low bidder's price goes up by $10 per month, yet Waste Management's price goes up by 95 cents. That's so if the residents want to place glass into their single stream recycling, it's $10 more if you go with a low bidder. It was 95 cents more if you go with Waste Management's bid. Yet, if you are locked into selecting the low bidder without being able to consider the alternatives, you're effectively prevented from adding glass to single stream recycling. You may have seen some of the legal debate back and forth between the city attorney's office and myself. We have discussed whether the city can decide this contract first by selecting the preferred combination of alternatives and then determining who bid the lowest price. I've looked at the same case that the city attorney's office looked at. In that case, the court approved exactly the kind of process I am suggesting the city use. Go out to bid, solicit a base proposal and alternatives, review them all, and select the best package of alternatives, then figure out the low bidder. I think Mr. Adams acknowledged that that was a possibility, and that's what that particular case stood for. If you didn't get an RFP process that looked like that, which is what I think you expected to get, you can throw it out and start over again. And so what if the city attorney disagrees with me and says that you must select the low bidder and then choose the alternatives? Well, I'll just go back to the very first point I made. This is the city council's decisions to make. You have the discretion to reject all bids. I can see my time is up, but I do just want to say that the point's been raised about the recycling, and we wanted to make sure that the city council understands what is going to happen to the recyclables. We operate the Bluebird Recycling. We operate the Spokane Smart Center. We know what it takes to manage recyclables. For example, we think that you ought to know, and I'm glad we had the questions before, we ought to know what's going to happen in terms of the costs if the recyclables have to get sent all the way to Seattle. I'm glad to hear that we got that clarified, that they would, in fact, be borne by the party responsible. Finally, I just want to say it's tough for Waste Management to be sitting here fighting for this contract. But when it's something this important, it is worth fighting for. But I know that the Waste Management employees, Steve Roberg and his employees, have really appreciated working with the city. I think they've appreciated the compliments that they have heard about our service. And I know how hard Steve and the other Waste Management employees have worked to earn your trust. I only hope that you will allow us a chance to continue to serve the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll invite a representative for Sunshine to come up to the podium.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm Mark Torrey, president of Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. I appreciate the opportunity to have a few minutes to address our proposal to you. I'm going to touch on a few highlights and then ask Alex Wu to come up and talk a little bit about process. First off, our proposed prices for the services we believe the city wants are firm, and if you guys were to select our proposal, we are prepared to provide a seamless transition July 1st. Our proposal will provide wages and benefits to our new employees that are comparable to those that are paid today. We will offer qualified displaced workers the opportunity to apply and be employed by our company. Our proposal also includes an office within the city limits because your citizens deserve that convenience. So I'll reiterate, our prices are firm. They were all submitted prior to the deadline for the RFP. We've provided a firm price for glass recycling that is 12 cents per month per house. The proposed contract from your staff has an open-ended program and no price. So how they can determine who the low bidder is for the services that are going to be provided under the contract is hard for us to understand. It's like comparing our proposal, which says 2 + 2 = 4, another proponent's proposal, which says 2 + 3 is 5, and the one that staff wants you to accept says 2 + X = Y. So how is that the low bid? If there's no questions, I'll ask Alex.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Alex Wu. I'm counsel for Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. I'll use the few minutes I have here to discuss the case that both Waste Management and the City Attorney's Office has illustrated. That case is SEZ Construction v. Idaho State University. That's a 2004 case in which Idaho State University was was actually soliciting bids for renovation of its physical sciences building. They wanted, the bid structure was this. They had a base bid, 5 alternates, and then they had an indeterminate number of classroom audiovisual packages that they wanted. They didn't know how much money they were going to have to spend on this project, so they couldn't tell the contractors how much they would have to spend. So they asked for bids, and they got them. They got several bidders. After the city received the bids, and this is the process part, this is what's important here. After the city, or after Idaho State University received the bids, they opened the bids, they looked at how much money they had, they decided which options they wanted, and then they selected the lowest bidder based on the sum of those options. And in that case, it turned out to be the base bid, all 5 alternates, 2 of the first audio classroom video packages, and 12 of the second audio visual packages. And as council has said, the Supreme Court of Idaho has blessed that process and said that that is the correct process, and the reasons are straightforward. The whole point of a sealed bid process for public contracts is to ensure that constituents pay as little as possible for all of the services that they want, period. And what we're asking and what we're proposing to do here is that we don't have an objection to this RFP. We don't have an objection to the process that has gone through. We do have an objection to how the lowest bidder was calculated, and that's because it sounds, and it's evident in this contract, that what the city desires is the lowest possible price for a combination of the base, all the services in the base package, in addition to glass recycling. And they want a firm price on that, and you have that today. The lowest bidder, if you consider all of those options, the base bid and recycling, is Sunshine. Stands by those prices. The issue, as has been brought up twice before, but I think it's worth bringing up one more time, is that you'll notice there are numbers everywhere in this contract except for glass. There are no numbers. Tonight, for the first time, we've heard that Northern State is proposing something along the lines of $1,000 a month for glass recycling. That's not in the contract either. And so what the process that's been presented to you up to this point is one in which you've been told that you must select the lowest bidder on the base bids, no matter how much glass recycling costs, period. And that's just wrong. And the case that we're relying on, it's 4 pages long, and it's written so that anybody could understand it. I have 10 copies in my briefcase over here. I'd be happy to hand them out. Take a few minutes, read it for yourself. The process that the court, that this tribunal should use to award the contract is select the packages that you want, get a firm price on them, sign the lowest contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will invite a representative from Coeur d'Alene Garbage.
Hello, my name's Phil Damiano. Is that too loud?
You're good.
Owner of Coeur d'Alene Garbage Service. Mayor Widmeyer and council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It is my hope that I might answer some questions and make you comfortable that the contract that you will vote on tonight is in fact the best deal by far for the city of Coeur d'Alene. And I hope I also get a point or two for being the only guy that didn't bring his attorney up to the podium. The first thing I'd like to address is what I call the 3 Ps: process, performance, and price. My 2 other proponents have complained that the process and the contract are flawed and have asked for a do-over. This only makes sense if you did not submit the lowest bid. However, these complaints were voiced after the bids were received and opened, and Coeur d'Alene Garbage was by far the low bid. These complaints have no merit whatsoever. In the staff report under history, city staff, blessed by the city legal department, clearly chronicles how the process was not flawed and that there was no timely objections to the process. It was only after the bids were received, opened, tallied, that both of the other proponents now have all these issues with the process. Sounds like sore losers to me. There have also been questions about performance. The city staff has fully vetted our company. They have checked with the city of Post Falls and Kootenai County, who we have large contracts with, and our company was, quote, praised by both entities for its customer service and professionalism. Also, staff is convinced that Coeur d'Alene Garbage will provide high-quality, timely, and professional solid waste and single-stream recycling collection, end quote. The third P is price, and I refer to City Staff Report, page 4, under Financial Analysis. Our bid was calculated at $196,000 per month. Sunshine, $230,000 per month, and Waste Management came in a distant third place at $241,000 per month. Okay? Over a potential 16-year contract, Coeur d'Alene Garbage Service is the low bid by $6.6 million. $6.6 million. Waste Management's bid was $8.7 million more than our bid. The RFP clearly stated that the low bid wins and that the calculation will only be on the base bid. It is my belief that the City Council has a fiduciary responsibility to the people to provide services at the lowest cost. Coeur d'Alene Garbage Service is a fully vetted, qualified, and recommended low bidder by $6.6 million. Now, let's talk a little bit about glass recycling. The RFP asked for bids on adding glass recycling to the single stream as an alternative. The RFP was very specific that this was an alternative and would not be used in determining the winning bid, but to gain information on the true costs of glass recycling, and suggestions were encouraged. Our research showed that adding glass to the single stream is the most expensive and the least favored way nationwide to recycle or divert glass. Adding glass to the single stream devalues and contaminates the single stream material. Also, our research showed that currently glass does not get recycled in most cases. It just doesn't. In fact, yesterday I talked by phone to a lady named Chris Major, who is the Recycling Education Coordinator for the City of Spokane, Washington. And she confirmed to me that the glass that is put in the single stream system in Spokane and processed by the Waste Management Material Recovery Facility is not recycled, but currently is used as daily covered at the Graham Road landfill. There is a better way to handle glass. This better way is through placing 30-yard drop boxes or depots or stations at different locations throughout the city where people can take their glass. This separates the glass so it does not contaminate the single stream. Okay? In the contract before you on page 34, section 3.6, our company agrees to provide and service glass recycling stations at our cost. Now, the best part of this system is that the city controls where the glass goes and the number of stations. Okay? The cost is dependent on what the city determines it wants to do with the glass. The program is totally flexible. If we want 3 depots, 5 depots, 10 depots, and the city is going to say, haul that stuff to Seattle, to E-Colet, and we're going to give them the price. Or the city's going to say, well, that's too high of a price. Maybe we'll do a secondary reuse of that material as an inert material that's building roads in a landfill. It's totally up to the city. It's up to you guys. And I'm going to do it for my cost. Okay? So, the best way, the program is totally flexible and nationwide. This program of separate glass depots or stations is widely accepted as the best way to deal with glass and is the most beneficial to single-stream recycling programs. In conclusion, the contract before you represents the best of everything. We are going to provide a new garbage cart. We are going to provide a new recycle cart. We are going to provide a new metal bin to all residents and businesses in the city. We are partnering with the city to provide an inexpensive, flexible, and nationally favored glass recycling program. And all of this for $6.6 million less than my closest competitor. Okay? I ask this council that you vote to accept this great deal for the city of Coeur d'Alene. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I want to allow the opportunity for anyone that wants to come up and give public comment. What I'd like to do is maybe just get a show of hands of how many people would like to come up so I can gauge how much time. We just have a couple, so I'll give everyone 3 minutes to comment.
John Ingalls, City of Coeur d'Alene. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak. As you well know, the City of Coeur d'Alene strives to be a city of excellence, and you're all about delivering service excellence. And certainly recycling and garbage service are examples of delivering service excellence. Some of you might remember a council meeting some years ago where people drug in their bins into the council meeting. Some of you are snickering about that a little bit. That illustrates how passionate people are about garbage and garbage service and how important it is to them. I think one even jokingly said, "You'll have to pry my blue bin out of my cold, dead hands." A joke. But a few observations I would share with you that I've made over the years. Without folks knowing that I was watching, the current provider of garbage service, I've witnessed them numerous times, tip the carts, a little garbage spills out, they get out of their trucks, they clean things up, they do a great job. They could have easily kept going. I've seen the carts tipped over by wind and snow plows, leaving a huge mess. The current provider takes care of business, cleans things up. Like some of you, I've been guilty of overstuffing my bin way beyond the 3 inches. I never get a special charge for that. Act of God, we talked about Act of God. You remember the 150-inch winters back to back? The current provider did a workaround plan because they couldn't get through alleys. They were dragging carts through front yards to get them out to the street. They did a phenomenal job in doing a workaround. As a Panhandle Kiwanis member, I appreciate the community service we get from the community current provider that provides free service for our Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event. And if you notice the events downtown, 4th of July, Coeur d'Alene, they provide free bins for that as well. As I've watched these council meetings, I get confused. There's a big difference between an invitation for bid and the term bid and a proposal. And it just seems like we're mixing things up. As the one gentleman spoke, you know, an RFP talks about rating factors, and you define what those rating and performance factors are up front. You know, do you want a service that price is one of the elements? You know, or are you asking for a true RFP where you define the performance attributes and compete it on the attributes where price is one of those? I just wanted to share that, you know, Coeur d'Alene residents have come to value and appreciate excellent garbage and recycling services as is currently being provided. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, my name is Ron Nilsson. I'm also an elected official for this great community, and I feel for you in the position that you're in today. I'm here tonight to ask and encourage you to accept the bid that was given to you by Coeur d'Alene Garbage. I've been involved in more than 250 bid processes myself in my company, and I've lost more than half of those, and each time I lose those, it hurts. But it was part of the process. In the bidding process, there's always a winner, and then there's always a lot of other losers that lose that. Waste Management lost this. It should be over. To take this on and drag this on, that just reduces the quality of the bidding process. To reject this process and do it over will only open us up to potential lawsuits and bring concerns to the public that our city doesn't follow its own rules and bidding process. This bid and the huge savings that comes with this is for the citizens of Coeur d'Alene, the same citizen that elected you. Please finish this tonight and show with your vote that we are accountable to the process and to the citizens of this great city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you. My name is Brent Regan. I'm a resident of Coeur d'Alene, and I'm actually a customer of both Waste Management and Coeur d'Alene Garbage. And I have had excellent service from Coeur d'Alene Garbage, not so much from Waste Management. I saw this in the newspaper, and I couldn't really believe it. And then it occurred to me I read it in the newspaper, so I better research it myself. And I went and read the staff report. I read the contracts. I called the Kootenai County commissioners and asked them what kind of service they'd been getting from Coeur d'Alene Waste or Coeur d'Alene Garbage Services, and I gave them a glowing report. I have done contracting for the last 30 years, maybe not as much as Ron, Mr. Nilsson, but I've been involved in this process dozens of times, and it's really pretty simple. You put out what you want, you get the bids, you open them, and you pick the lowest one. There really isn't a lot to it beyond that. The fact that Coeur d'Alene Garbage is offering you an at-cost option is a very good thing, because if you don't have an at-cost option, if I'm a vendor and I say, well, I have to give you a firm fixed price quote for this, I have to charge you the highest price all the time. That's a risk that I would have to take. So I got to charge you the high price, and which might explain the $800,000 difference. As for wanting to delay the process and extend the contract, currently the city is paying some $800,000 a year more than they would be with the Coeur d'Alene Garbage contract. So, yeah, of course they'd want to extend it. I would encourage you to take this thing on its face value. You can evaluate the staff has evaluated the contract. You have the lowest price. You've had the criterion from which you're supposed to evaluate that, and it's just a simple decision. Is it the lowest price? Yes. I strongly encourage you to do that and to save money for the residents of Coeur d'Alene and the people who pay the garbage bill, myself included. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Kathy Mayer. I'm the Solid Waste Director for Kootenai County. And my point of coming up is just a point of clarification on the extension of the contract, just so you're aware. The current contract is with Kootenai County. It is not with the City of Coeur d'Alene. The contract has been in place for 16 years. Contract extensions have already been administered, and the contract provisions do not allow for any further contract extensions after the end of June. There may be other avenues that the council could pursue. You'd have to consult with your legal counsel on that if you could do a sole source justification if you did so choose. Just wanted to clarify that there are no extensions on the county contract.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to give public comment? Okay. Woody, you still with us?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. Thank you.
Okay, just checking on you. All right, Randy, if you would do a summation for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I think everybody appreciates the good service provided by whoever provides it, that Waste Management has given good service. But this is not a situation where a private party goes to buy a car and can negotiate before they decide whether to buy or not. The law is very clear. The purchase or procurement of public services must be by low bid. And the bid has to be defined, and the RFP defined the bid by the base proposal. And it is not unheard of, and it's been approved, that you can award a bid on base proposal and then negotiate some alternatives, some additional aspects of the contract. That's what was done here. And it was done because council didn't know how much it was going to cost to recycle glass. We could not have included it in the base proposal without having that information. So the purpose of the RFP, and I would agree that the terminology may be a little bit fuzzy. The statute uses the term solicitation for bids. There is no such thing in the statute as a request for proposal. It is a solicitation for bid. You have to have a number to give a low bid, and that's what was done. So again, staff has considered the case law, has considered numerous letters from the attorneys for the other parties, the other proponents, and we've determined that this process does comply with the law, and staff recommends that the low bid be awarded to Coeur d'Alene Garbage.
Any further questions? Amy?
You just answered one of them, but I'm going to clarify. So, in your opinion, there was no other option other than the RFP, in awarding the low bid, the option that we executed?
That's correct.
Okay. There was a statement about the Add Alternatives, Let's Talk Glass, and soliciting creative ideas and bringing them back to council for discussion. At what point in the process did that or should have happened?
I believe it did happen to some extent at the General Services meeting. Obviously, any of these discussions have to be an open meeting. As I mentioned to Councilmember Miller, the contract can still be modified. So this is part of the process as well. If council has some additional suggestions, changes to the contract, all staff is doing is presenting a proposed contract to you that we have negotiated, that we believe meets the requirements of RFP and provides for glass recycling. But the decision is the council's.
And one more question based on Mr. Damiano's comments about the cost. So he states that over the 16-year period, there's going to be a $6.6 million savings. Is that savings going directly to our constituents? Are they going to see a decrease? Are they going to see that savings reflected in their bill?
I believe Mr. Tymeson reported at the General Services that there probably would not be a decrease in the monthly bill, but that it would remain the same for a period of time or for the foreseeable future, because the garbage is funded out of the sanitation fund, which is apparently not doing well. So the savings that we're going to realize is going to make the fund healthy. for these other purposes, such as glass recycling, so that it's not passed on to the customer, to the residents.
Ron, did you have something?
Yeah, Randy, let me ask you this. Do you believe in contracts like this and such an important issue that the mayor and the council should be involved in it?
I do.
In the negotiations?
Well, I believe that the council and the mayor can delegate that authority to do the initial negotiations. That's what staff is for. And then council gets involved here at the general services meeting and here at city council. That's when council and the mayor can become involved in the negotiations. Otherwise, you can run afoul of the open meetings law if they all meet in private session with the contractor to negotiate. Did I answer your question?
Any other questions, Dan?
I was just going to comment on what Ron said. And in my time up here, I've learned a lot about how the system works. And I've had my hand slapped a couple of times when, as a council person, I've tried to do the job of administration or staff, because that's not our job. And our job on this topic was to make a motion on February 16th to direct staff to do a job. And if we wanted to, we could have made a motion that would have been really damn specific. And we could have said, make a motion to go out for bids on glass to include, or bids on sanitation to include glass in the base price. We could have used that language and staff would have followed through. But we didn't. We said to go out and get bids and then add on all the other stuff. And that was the motion that was made. That was actually the second motion, because the first motion I thought was too vague, so I objected to it. So the second motion was to do that, and we all voted yes. And I've seen that happen way too many times when we've gone ahead and done something, and staff has diligently followed through and done exactly what we told them to do. And then we come back and we're like, well, what happened? Well, they did what we told them to do. And as an example, we do an annexation agreement. And in the annexation agreement, we're talking about, well, why isn't there a park in this new neighborhood? Well, we can go ahead and make as part of the motion to direct staff to include a park in the annexation agreement. And there may be some balking and feedback on that, but that's where our power is. We can't come back after a motion is made and say, well, geez, I really wish we would have done this, because you can't unwind that clock. So I just want to say to everyone up here, if you really want something, you have to be very careful that when staff asks for a motion that you're specific and say, I want this and I want that. And if you go over the line, if you say, well, I want this contract to include that all the new trucks have to be painted bright orange, then staff will probably say, well, that's a little bit beyond what we would like to do, and that's part of the feedback and the process. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what happened in this case. We gave a motion. You guys carried out the motion and did it exactly as we directed. We did not ask to be part of the RFP process, to open the bids, to negotiate, or anything. We just said, do the bid thing, and you guys did, per code, and you negotiated with the lowest bidder, you moved forward. This thing's happening in a matter of weeks, so time is of the essence. And correct me if I'm wrong anywhere, but I think that's the process, and that's where there's a little bit of frustration up here.
I think that's exactly the process.
Ron?
Yeah. With all due respect, Dan, I disagree with you.
Okay. Amy?
I have one more question. We have received numerous emails from constituents and employees. And one question I have is there a provision anywhere in the contract for employees' wages and benefits if some employees leave one agency and are hired by another agency? I know there's great concern, and I'm hoping we can address that just here.
Well, again, the city is really not in the position to dictate the wages that a contractor pays. There is a provision in the contract regarding fair labor standards, and I can cite it to you section or paragraph 3.3.1, fair labor practices. Contractor shall guarantee fair labor and non-discrimination practices in accordance with applicable federal and state laws, and shall be responsible for the public conduct of all personnel when acting within the scope of their employment. That is the extent to which the city can dictate those type of terms.
Randy, in the RFP process, if it was, you'll see some contracts that talk about prevailing wages, right? I don't know if it's necessarily RFP, but the time, I guess, to address wages of the bidder is at the time of the RFP is prepared.
That is true.
Other questions for Randy? We've got some time to fill before Ron gets back. Okay. Come on, guys, come up with something.
Of course.
Kiki. Yeah, why not? There we go.
So
maybe Woody can ask a question.
Woody, are you here?
Oh, I'm here.
So I just wanted to clear
3 hours difference. It's 10:15.
I just wanted to clear something up that I had said earlier, and I think this has been a learning curve for council, and possibly something staff could carry forward, in that there is no such thing as an RFP, RFI, RFQ. It's a solicitation for bids. And I went back and looked at the agenda, and I looked at the council, and Troy had clearly stated that what he was intending to do was seek creativity. He was looking for different things, and he used things like he had clear statements that said he intended to go out and request this information from vendors. So I think where I sit with this still is that is an RFI. That's a request for information or a request for quote. That would not necessarily come back to council in any way. It would be something that I thought Troy would go, get this information, come together and say, here's the best of the best. That piece of information generates the RFP/solicitation for bid. That's the piece that I think council has been wrestling with, that they thought that RFI would come together, whether they saw it and maybe it did. But that was never intended, apparently, now I know, to come back to council. But it just generated the bid document. So I go back to nothing was released unfairly or illegally or without all bidders having all of the same information. If our policy was flawed, it's that we didn't move in a time frame far enough out to gather all this information, find out what those answers were, and then be able to say, if we put out an alternative for glass, our engineer's estimate in this case is that glass is going to be somewhere between $1 and $15. And then council will have the ability to say, we need to put a ceiling on that as an alternate. But that isn't the process that happened. So it wasn't an illegal process. It was clear to everyone. So I don't know. The throwing out all bids option doesn't seem like it would be fair. I'm still uncomfortable with the contract. So I still have questions in the contract, and I'm hoping that we have the ability to add some language and negotiate that and set a date when that could be executed. That's where I'm at.
I guess I have a question on that. If there's anything changed in the contract, that has to come back again before council, right? And so there, and again, time is of the essence. So if we have some things that we wish to change in the contract, some certain language, we would probably be best served to address that tonight, so we can all approve whatever language is in the contract, so we can move forward. Because today is the whatever of April, the 19th of April.
And I think you said we can award the bid. So if we can make a motion to do that, or to whoever wants to make a motion, but set a date to negotiate specific paragraphs of the contract. Just let me know if that's something that's possible.
That is possible. It's possible if you are specific enough tonight to simply say we want this language added, and it wouldn't have to come back to council unless the contractor said, wait a minute, I want to change that language. I don't accept that as stated by council. But if language was stated by council as part of the motion, to add to the contract, and the contractor agreed, I don't think it would have to come back to council.
Do you have some specific things in mind, Kiki?
What I'm still wrestling with is, and I'm not sure who brought the statement up that because the glass is now merged in with the recyclables in one paragraph, it leaves it in my mind kind of. I don't want the citizens of Coeur d'Alene to spend their time and gas and money and clean their bottles out and drive them to one of these depots, and they're going to end up in the landfill anyway, and we're going to have to pay for that. So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can tighten up the process of that, and I know that you explained. We can, we have a report and we know what that will be.
And
but
it's
the
difficult.
language just feels like that.
Yeah, and it's difficult to know on a day-to-day basis even where the glass is going to go. So there's got to be some flexibility.
I don't know.
I think it's addressed.
You do? Okay.
They basically
Dan?
said the city gets to choose where the glass gets to go. So if the contractor decides that he wants to haul the glass to Seattle, he has to run it by the city.
But then we pay for it.
Well, the city would know
That is cost.
The city would know what cost it is to haul it there or haul it to Spokane or to Montana. Those are the choices that you make.
But it says economically feasible, so you kind of say, well, now we are telling the citizens, we are giving them what they want, glass recycling, but the reality is only if the city pays for it outside of the base bid to at the low bidder's cost, which I think is fair, but if they can't do anything outside of Seattle, their cost would be to transfer it to Seattle. Which then you're right, the city could say we can't afford to do that and say no, but now we've told the constituents that they have glass recycling and they don't.
Yeah.
Go.
This guy can go first because I've been talking.
Well, I have some general comments, but probably not a question, but, I guess all due respect to Kiki giving some feedback on where is our role versus the staff? And this is where it gets kind of tricky in terms of at the board level trying to, kind of micromanage some of those things and negotiate some of those details by committee in a public process. At the same time, we do have a duty to, try to answer those things. So I guess I'll just, speaking for myself, I have a good comfort level with the staff, where they're at this point, and the ability to fine-tune that to get to the point that we need to be. And then I guess I'll just make a few other comments in general on it that, I've gotten all the emails and things too. And this is my first time for a major bid process in the city, at least this time. But I have been through a number of them before and, looked at a whole lot of different things. But, boy, when I come back to the original, request for bids and some of the follow-up answers and questions, to me, it really boils down pretty simple that it's the low bidder based on the base requirement. And I believe that that's what we need to look at and go with. And then we also have the ability to address the other concerns, things like the wages. Of course, as an individual person, of course, that's important to me. It resonates, but I can't make a decision as a council member based on that. I mean, if we were going to worry about what we're going to pay and things, that ship sailed a long time ago when we got into contracting and all of that. And so I guess for me, and maybe it's, I have the benefit of not as much in-depth experience with this particular contract or you folks, but to me it really boils down to pretty simple that it was boiled down to the best competitive bid price. We are reassured by our staff that they are qualified bidders. We have some of our own outside evidence to support that. So I have a comfort level with going forward tonight. I have no comfort level with putting it back out.
Dan.
This one.
Yeah.
So, Randy, if we go ahead and we approve this tonight, what opportunities would council have to give feedback to the contract in the future? I mean, we go ahead and we approve a contract. Kiki reads it, she sees some things that she believes should be brought to council's attention. Can those things be brought to council at a later date, or is it kind of a done deal?
No, the contract itself provides that terms can be modified by the agreement with the contractor, and as I said, it can be terminated by the city. So the city has not 100% say. We can't dictate the terms of the contract, but they can be renegotiated if something comes up later. And that's what the contract contemplates. If there are new economies, new technologies, it contemplates that we take those into consideration.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm comfortable like Dan is with this, and so I would like to make a motion, if I could, to approve Resolution 16020, which is approving the contract with Northern State PAC LLC DBA Coeur d'Alene Garbage Service for solid waste and single-stream recycling collection.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Well, again, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to repeat what I said earlier, that the motion we made on the 16th of February was to collect bids, and then we listed options, and that's exactly what you guys did. If we wanted to be more specific, we could have been more specific, but everyone up here voted unanimously to move forward with that process. I don't think we can unwind that clock. I don't think we want to. So it is a learning lesson, an expensive one for some people, but this date is coming up very quickly. We have a low bidder, and they're following through with everything they followed through. I believe that if you want to clarify or confirm that they've been very cooperative with the city and they've explored all kinds of options to ensure that this moves forward smoothly.
Further discussion? Kiki?
I'll just add that I don't believe that this broad latitude of negotiating the ad alternates is a good business policy. But it's not illegal, and it's within the statutes, and everyone was aware of it. So if that's the process that we use to get what we wanted, then I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, Woody?
can you hear me?
We got you. Maybe speak up just a little bit.
Okay, so here I am sitting on the mall in Washington, D.C., by that lake, you know, where all the people get in and do riots and stuff. So I'm looking to my left, and there's the Lincoln Memorial. It's bigger than you can imagine. And I look to my right, and there's that big, tall Washington Monument. And I'm sitting here in America's past government, right? And then we're talking about garbage. And it's just really hard to be sitting here looking at this and talking about garbage. But the bottom line for me is that I'm saving the folks $6.5 million over 10 years, and that's what I'm going to go with, is on the low bid. Thank you.
All right, thanks. If there's no other discussion, roll call, please. Amy?
Amy has something
Oh,
to say.
I'm sorry, Amy. Go ahead.
I went through the contract in detail at General Services, and I just want to share my appreciation with staff for addressing many of my questions and concerns at that time and coming back with an amended contract. So first I want to say that this has been a learning experience for sure. I'm uncomfortable with the glass recycling still as it states. I would feel more comfortable if it was defined further. Questions have been asked, and we've talked about it extensively tonight, and so it is what it is right now at this point. I'm also extremely uncomfortable with the process that we went through, and the ownership of that is on council at the February meeting, and we learned a lot about our motion. So that's all.
Thank you. Now, roll call, please. Amy?
Ettinger?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried. We will just take a 10-minute recess right now. So, Wood, we'll see you later. Thank you, Woody.
My battery is dying. Thank you.
So that's the noise I can.
Yeah.